Nigeria terrorist governments have been exposed over atrocities committed against Biafrans. The news update discusses the ongoing efforts for the independence of Biafra, emphasizing alleged sabotage by individuals and entities working against the cause. A critic has criticized the 1914 amalgamation of Nigeria by Lord Lugard, claiming the artificial state causes division and oppression, particularly against Biafrans. Accounts are shared of arrests, detentions, and violations of human rights, including prolonged incarceration without trial, specifically in Imo State's Tiger Base. Reports of security forces aiding violence, targeting Christians, and destroying properties in northern Nigeria are highlighted as evidence of systemic oppression. Criticism of Imo State's government for allegedly suppressing dissent and silencing activists through arrests and intimidation. Testimonies reveal that some detainees in Imo State have been held for years without trial, with accusations of fabricated charges like treason and terrorism. A pastor in Mongu local government narrates how Christian communities face persecution, claiming military complicity in attacks and destruction of homes. Accusations are made against police officers extorting money from students, targeting young men, and demanding exorbitant bail amounts. Governor Charles Soludo of Anambra State leads efforts to demolish structures linked to criminal activities, such as hotels and shrines reportedly used for kidnapping and violent crimes. Bottom of form, so picture this. I've just come across some pretty shocking news, and I want to share it with you. This isn't just about random headlines or dry reports you find in newspapers. This is something deeply personal, something that's been unfolding for a long time now, and it involves a group of people who have been suffering in silence. I'm talking about the Biafran people, their ongoing struggle, and how the Nigerian government, referred to by many as the terrorist government, has been carrying out some pretty horrific acts against them. So let me walk you through what I found. There's been a lot of talk about Biafran independence over the years, right? People have been demanding it, fighting for it, but there's been so much sabotage, both from within the community and from forces outside. Now, I'm not here to give you just the facts and figures. I want to talk about the stories, the lives, the struggles, and the resilience of the Biafrans in their fight for what they believe is rightfully theirs. You know, one of the first things that jumped out at me when I was going through this report was a criticism of Nigeria's very existence. There's this deep anger towards the 1914 amalgamation of Nigeria, which was orchestrated by a British colonial officer named Lord Frederick Lugard. For years, this date has been a thorn in the side of many, especially the Biafran people. The idea of forcing different ethnic groups to live under one roof has caused nothing but division and oppression. For the people of Biafra, it's like living in an artificial state that doesn't recognize their sovereignty. And it's not just the historical anger that fuels the Biafran movement. What's happening now is just as brutal, if not more. There have been countless reports of arrests, detentions, and violations of human rights. The most disturbing part: many of these people have been incarcerated for years without trial. Imagine that, locked away for so long with no one even bothering to look at their case. One place that's gained a reputation for this? Imo State's infamous Tiger Base, a location that has become synonymous with human rights violations. Now, let me tell you a bit about the stories that have emerged from this place. People have been picked up off the streets, thrown into cells, and just forgotten about. One of the most heart-wrenching things I read about was how many of these individuals, some of them activists, some of them just regular citizens, were accused of treason or terrorism. Of course, these charges were often fabricated, because the real reason they were locked up was because they dared to speak out against the system. They were a threat to the powers that be, but that's not where it ends. There are these accounts coming from all over the region, from people who have seen and experienced unimaginable things. I came across the story of a pastor in Mongu local government. This man, a Christian, told of how Christian communities are being persecuted. They're being driven out of their homes by violence. What's even more disturbing is the complicity of the military in these attacks. They're supposed to be protecting the people, but they're not. In fact, they're doing the exact opposite. They're aiding and abetting the violence. One man even spoke about how the military allowed people to burn homes, particularly in areas dominated by Christians. While those in the Muslim communities were left untouched, the Christian families were targeted. This wasn't a random act of violence either. The military presence in these areas wasn't to protect the innocent. Instead, it seemed like they were there to ensure the destruction of these communities. Can you imagine the pain and confusion? To have the very people who are supposed to keep the peace turn a blind eye or even encourage the attacks. But this isn't just about Biafrans or Christians. It's a broader problem that affects anyone who dares to challenge the government or the system in place. There's another chilling report from Imo State, where police officers are allegedly extorting money from students. I read about this one police officer who stopped students and demanded huge amounts of money from them, money they simply didn't have. They were told to pay bail fees that were way too high for their families to afford. It's all part of a pattern of oppression, designed to keep people under control. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. Let's talk about Governor Charles Soludo from Anambra State for a minute. This man has been taking some pretty drastic measures in his efforts to clean up the state. He's been tearing down structures that are linked to criminal activities. It's part of his plan to restore order and make the streets safer. But what really caught my attention was how he and his team recently demolished a hotel called Udoka Golden Point Hotel. From the outside, it might have looked like a regular business, but behind closed doors, it was a hub for criminal activities like kidnapping. Can you imagine? You think you're going to a hotel and it turns out to be a front for something so much darker. Governor Soludo didn't stop there. He ordered the demolition of other buildings that were connected to similar crimes. The whole idea behind this is zero tolerance for criminal activities. Soludo and his team are sending a message that they're not going to sit by and let these activities fester. If you're involved in criminal enterprises, you're not safe. And if you own a building that facilitates crime, you're going to lose it. Of course, there are always some who criticize this approach, arguing that it's too harsh. But when you hear the stories of the people suffering from these crimes, it's hard not to see why drastic action might be necessary. Imagine the fear in a community where kidnapping, extortion, and violence are an everyday occurrence. It's a nightmare for the people who just want to live in peace. But it's not just the actions of the Nigerian government and the local authorities that are under scrutiny. The international community has started to pay attention as well. Various human rights organizations, including the United Nations, Amnesty International, and others, are now involved. These organizations have been keeping a close eye on what's happening in Nigeria and have been demanding accountability for the crimes being committed by the government. Now, back to the whole issue of freedom of speech. There's been a constant battle against it in Nigeria, especially in Imo State. One particular case has gained a lot of attention. An activist named Tiger Base has been in detention for months now. Despite the fact that there are no charges against him, he's been locked up. The government has accused him of being part of the unknown government, a term used to describe the various dissidents and activists who have been fighting for Biafran independence. The sad truth is that Tiger Base is not the only one. There are countless others who've been thrown into prison for speaking out against the government, for daring to challenge the status quo. It's heartbreaking to think about how many people are suffering simply for expressing their views. Some have been detained for years without trial. The Nigerian authorities don't seem to care about due process or basic human rights. The worst part? These people are often subjected to horrible conditions while they wait, forgotten by the system and silenced by fear. And yet, despite all this, the people continue to fight. They continue to resist. They continue to demand justice. But here's the thing. The struggle for freedom doesn't just end with one victory. It's a long, hard battle that takes years, sometimes generations, to win. The people fighting for Biafran independence know this all too well. They understand that the road to freedom is filled with obstacles, and it's going to take more than just a few protests or demonstrations to change things. It's going to take courage, perseverance, and a collective will to make it happen. And so, as we look at the events unfolding in Nigeria today, it's clear that the fight for Biafran independence is far from over. The government continues to oppress, to violate human rights, and to suppress freedom of speech. But the people of Biafra aren't backing down. They're not going to stop until they reclaim their sovereignty, until they get the freedom they deserve. So, where does this leave us? What can we do? Well, the first step is to spread the word. Share these stories. Share the truth. Let the world know what's really happening. The more people understand the situation, the greater the chance that the international community will step in and demand change. And remember, as long as there are people who are willing to stand up and speak out, the fight for Biafran independence will never be in vain. Now, when you think about all the things the Biafran people have had to endure, it's hard not to feel a deep sense of sympathy and, honestly, outrage. These are real people with families, dreams, and hopes for a better life, just like any of us. And yet, year after year, they've been subjected to unimaginable suffering simply because of where they were born or what they believe in. Imagine waking up one morning to find that your entire community has been torn apart, that your home has been demolished, and that your neighbors have either fled or been taken by force. That's the reality for too many Biafrans today. It's a story that's been repeated so many times it's hard to keep count. And it's not just some far-off abstract issue we can forget about after a few news cycles. These are lives being destroyed right now, today. Take, for example, the family of a young man named Ikenna. Ikenna was a student in a small village in southeastern Nigeria. He had big dreams of becoming a doctor, of helping his community live healthier lives. He was smart, driven, and optimistic about his future. But that future was stolen from him one night when the military came to his village. They rounded up a group of young men, including Ikenna, and accused them of being members of a separatist group. Despite having no evidence, no trial, and no way to defend himself, Ikenna was thrown into prison. He spent months in a tiny cell, denied access to his family, and subjected to cruel and degrading treatment. All because he was young and ambitious, because he dared to dream of a better life outside of the oppression his people had endured for so long. It's stories like Ikenna's that make the whole situation so much more personal. This isn't just about politics or international affairs. It's about real people, real lives, and real dreams that are being crushed every single day. His story isn't unique. It's a reflection of what many Biafran families go through on a regular basis. Ikenna's story highlights not just the systemic issues in Nigeria, but the sheer brutality of a government that will stop at nothing to suppress voices of dissent. And it's not just the young men like Ikenna who are affected. Women, children, and the elderly have also found themselves caught in the crossfire of this ongoing war. Families have been torn apart, communities destroyed, and people's livelihoods obliterated. The emotional toll on these individuals is immeasurable, and it's something that isn't often talked about in mainstream news. Let's take a moment to talk about the women of Biafra. These women have been the unsung heroes in this fight for independence. They've been on the front lines, fighting not just for their own freedom, but for the freedom of their children, their families, and their communities. I came across the story of Nkechi, a mother of 3, who's been tirelessly working to support her family, while also standing up for the rights of the Biafran people. Nkechi lost her husband during one of the many violent attacks carried out by the military, but she didn't let that break her. Instead, she became even more determined to fight for justice. Nkechi's life is filled with challenges. She struggles to put food on the table for her children. She fights against the oppressive system that continues to tear her community apart. But through it all, she remains hopeful. She knows that the struggle won't be easy, but she also knows that it's worth it. Women like Nkechi are the backbone of the Biafran movement, and without them, there would be no progress, no hope. These women aren't just victims, they're warriors. They've taken on roles as community leaders, as activists, and as voices of resistance. They've been organizing protests, speaking out against government atrocities, and refusing to let their people's stories go unheard. It's powerful to see how much strength and resilience they have, even in the face of such unimaginable hardship. And yet, despite all the progress they've made, they still face so many obstacles. The Nigerian government has been quick to silence these voices, to intimidate and harass anyone who dares to speak out. And what makes this even worse is that there's no accountability. The government can do whatever they want, and the international community often looks the other way. It's a systemic issue, one that's been going on for decades. But despite the odds, the Biafran people are still pushing forward. They're still demanding their rights, still asking for the freedom that's been denied to them for so long. Now, you might be wondering, why does all of this matter to us? Why should we care about what's happening so far away in Nigeria? Well, let me tell you why it matters. It matters because human rights are universal. It matters because what's happening to the Biafrans could easily happen to any of us. When a government can get away with violating the rights of its citizens, it sets a dangerous precedent for the rest of the world. If we stay silent, if we don't speak out, then we're complicit in the suffering of others. But here's the thing, we're not powerless. We can help bring attention to the plight of the Biafran people. By raising awareness, by talking about their struggles, we can help create pressure on governments, international organizations, and human rights groups to take action. We can stand in solidarity with the people of Biafra and show them that they're not alone. It's easy to feel like there's nothing we can do, but the truth is, change begins with us. It begins with everyday people who care enough to speak out, to share stories, and to demand justice. And that's exactly what the people of Biafra need right now. They need our voices. They need us to stand with them, to amplify their message, and to make sure that the world knows what's happening. So, as you sit here reading this, I want you to think about what you can do. What can you do to help raise awareness about the Biafran struggle? What can you do to help push for change? It might feel like a small step, but every little bit counts. By sharing stories like Ikena's and Nkechi's, by telling others about the ongoing human rights violations, you're helping to make the world a little bit more just. The fight for Biafran independence may seem daunting, but it's not over. The people of Biafra are still here, still fighting, still dreaming of a day when they can live free from oppression. And as long as they continue to fight, we should continue to support them. Together, we can make sure their voices are heard, their stories are shared, and their struggle is not forgotten.
In 1914, Nigeria was created by one sick man called Lugard. And there is nobody called a Nigerian. If you go to Lagos and there's somebody in the bus and they ask, how many people are in the bus? They say 5 persons and 1 Gambari. Who is a Gambari? Is he not supposed to be a Nigerian? If you go there, you go to the north, they say Nyamiri. You go there, they say, Berebe Banzani. If they are rioting in Kano, they will not look for Ghanaians to kill. They will look for Igbos, Yorubas, and Ijaws to kill. The same is everywhere. So where is the Nigeria we are talking about? Until the issues of the Niger Delta and the people who are dispossessed of their sovereignty is solved, there will be no peace. And people like us will not agree. Because the Bible says, and I want to quote, how can I sing the Lord God's song in a strange land? How can I, an Ijaw man, be called a Nigerian and be made to sing a Nigerian national anthem when I am not a Nigerian? I live and die an Ijaw man. I will never become a Nigerian or a River State man. I am not. This battle stand called River State, why was it created? To cause confusion. When the Igbos rose against the Nigerian oppressive state, in order to cause confusion between we and our brothers, the Igbos, Gowon deceitfully created what he called River State, another battle stand, another homeland for dispossessed people. I want to say that our fight, the fight of Ken Saro-Wiwa, Isaac Boro, and all the fallen heroes, is to reclaim our stolen sovereignty. For this, I was detained for 2 years. 10 months, 13 days on the ground by the maximum ruler of the Nigerian state, General Olusegun Obasanjo. But we have to rise up. We have to know who we are. The only thing that can guarantee our freedom is the independence of Biafra. There's no two ways about it. Good luck if you like to pretend. The only security for you is independence. The Zani, if you like pretend, the only security for you is independence. Charlie Boy pretend the only independence for you, the only freedom, the only liberty, peace for you is the independence of Biafra. But capable of achieving independence of Biafra. They are not stronger than us. Here, Oyibo Remaso, Oyibo Remaso, Oyibo. Why Chinebia? We will meet each other. That is the only basis for our existence as a people. The independence of Biafra. They say, sorry, oh. May God not allow them, make them kill you. Even though you don't give us, we see no say you be our daughter. But we hope another defeat day you could learn. Well, there's an opportunity come for, but once now. So when we saw them talk. So be Ijaw first, be Igbo first, be Biafra first.
Adema onye aka m nọ na eme nkwagharị ka mmata kpọmkwem ebe Dr. Fabian Ihekweme nọ. Dr. Fabian Ihekweme wubula commissioner n'ọchịchị Hope Uzodimma, commissioner for foreign affairs n'ọchịchị Hope Uzodimma, I think first tenure ya, and mecha mgbe abịazi reshuffle cabinet, he didn't come back. So Fabian Ihekweme was a politician from Obowo, and ihe ji maria wo the ancient seer, how he ji maria in the political class and the political destiny. Mgbe arrest, although I was in prison anyway, but I was following up. So mgbe arrest na Abuja with Tiger Base, keji jeme arrest na Abuja, bulata yo were here. That was during, I think, November, right? I think November last year. I can't na prison, but I was following up every news. So I was following up from the prison. So we were following up from Ihendo Kuka. Oto she criticize the government of Hope Uzodimma. Oto she more overbloat. Ego eja aroga Ihenda aroga Imo State and other things, and some critical questions or Juga as an Imolite. I am not judging him, because some people say, after all, he was part of this government. After all, he was eating with the government before. He was the one that installed this government. He was the one responsible for making this government to come on board. You know, how does that? I am not looking at that side. I am looking at the violation of his human right by the Imo State government. The violation of his human right by the Imo State government. Onye mere arrest since November. Don't boy on a Tiger Base. What is holding the government of Imo State? What is holding the Attorney General of Imo State to charge this man to court? Gini ka si no mere. I have to criticism I say or criticize the government. Now season on a sponsor unknown gunmen. You know? Not a sponsor unknown gunmen. That is the only allegation this government is man. I'm telling you. That's the only allegation this government in Imo State in Ama. And a bombado, a sponsor IPOB, a ESN, a unknown gunman, a spokesman, a this, a that. That is the only allegation. I'm charge now, charge you treason. I'm telling you, that is the only allegation this government, and they are doing it to stampede freedom of speech. This government is doing it to stampede. Is it possible? You cannot stop freedom of speech, no matter how you think to intimidate. No matter what you do, you must prove it. He who alleges must prove. The burden of proof lies on you. So, who made a murder arrest na Abuja since November? Dump wire na Tiger Base. This is January, November, December, January na hagu. By next week na Abala February. That one alone is a complete violation of his right to fair hearing. Who do make murder arrest, especially Tiger Base? The worst police unit in Imo State Police Command. Tiger Base, the worst in Nigeria as a whole. Because I go ma Abuja jucha juju. Iwe na ewe ndị police Abuja ebe the Tiger Base Imo State no. The report na aga na the complaint unit of the police headquarters IGP. Report na aga there against Tiger Base. Lekwe kampongwe elia. But they are not doing anything about it. And that is why we must do something about it. And how like you may have our lega. Their time is coming. For now, they are still swimming under the patronage and under the umbrella of whoever is giving them orders. But very soon, I want you hold guy yourself. We are calling upon the government of Imo State, Governor Hope Uzodimma, and we are calling upon the Attorney General of Imo State to sue and charge Dr. Fabian Ihekweme to court and seize and stop violating his right to fair hearing by dumping him in Tiger Base. This call is a call we are also making to the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, to the House of Representatives of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, to the Federal Government Attorney General. And we are also making this call to the United Nations, Amnesty International, all international human rights organizations to hearken to this call and ensure that the government of Imo State, under the Governor Hope Uzodimma, should charge every political detainee to court. They should charge them to court and allow the court to determine whether to continue to detain or free such people. It is a call we are making. But all for this government to ever think, freedom of speech in Imo State is a lie. Is a bigger lie. You can't stop freedom of speech. It is a happen. As a governor, you will leave very soon, April. So you cannot stop freedom of speech in a government, so that at the end of the day, there will not as governor. There must be freedom of speech in Imo State, and there must be freedom of speech in Nigeria, because it is enshrined in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Freedom of speech. If you think that the speech of somebody has defamed you, charge the person to court. That is what the Constitution says. You cannot keep doing this as a government. But look at the actions and the things you people are doing. What does it mean? Issue? No, what does it show? So we are calling upon the government of Imo State and the Attorney General of Imo State to charge Dr. Fabian Ihekweme to court. The international community is following up. Human rights organizations are following up. CSOs are following up. Thank you. Let us do the right thing. Let us do the right thing.
I'm here to report the situation in Mangu local government to the whole world to understand. What is happening in Mangu at this particular point in time? The military are the ones sending our people away to allow the militia to burn their houses. At this particular point in time, they have sent every Christian away from a new market, and thereby leaving the Muslim to go and burn their houses. They set the curfew. The curfew is restricted to only people within Mangu, within the Christian domain. But in the Muslim domain, they are free to move and do whatever they wanted to do. And not only that, the military has killed 3 of our young men, in which I know one is for my own church. They killed one yesterday, and I reported to the security. He said that it was a fake soldier. At first he said I was lying, until I proved to him beyond reasonable doubt. Then finally he said it was a fake soldier. I said no, it's not a fake soldier. It's a real soldier who killed him. I said no, it's a soldier that killed him. Finally they made signal to the soldier and he disappeared from the scene. This thing go on and on. Now that I'm speaking to you, all of them are switched off their phone, and they allow the place to be burned down and raised by the people. And this is what is going on even now that I'm speaking to you. There are people around Gindri Junction, down from this side, Lagir side, down there, their houses are now at place because the soldiers protected them and they allowed them to burn people's houses. They are not doing anything about it. So we in Mangu local government, as far as Christian is concerned, we don't want the military in Mangu local government. They should park at their load and go. We don't want them. We don't need them and we don't want them because the plan they have been bought. They have been paid with the price to carry out their duty, what they are doing. So that reason I'm saying, and I'm calling the whole world to understand that this thing should stop and people should come to our rescue to save us. If not, that is an evil plan for us to destroy Mangu local government because the governor is from here and we are not going to allow it. We are going to fight with less of the problem until they kill us all. The military should keep on killing us. We accept they should kill us, but we are not going to stop. We are going to penetrate. I will say personally, I organize the whole Christian in Mangu local government. We are going to fight. We are not going to stop. And that is what I said. If this is not stop, we are going to call a meeting for pastors and we are going to make an arrangement for that because that is enough is enough. We have tried all to make a peaceful living. We have cried and make cry, but the government is not listening. If they switch off their phone, where they should take our cry to? That's my plea. Thank you.
Una go cast students in name of Yahoo. Una go they cut 3.5 to 1.5 for the bailing. Una know how many youth policemen don't kill to way inside river. Nobody permit them or they go just enter school area. In name of I won't check your house, I won't check your car. For what? Area day where una go, where una know say thief and thief day, people bad people day, una no go, una go the month school area. Una go they disturb boys, una no get brain, policemen una no get brain. Any policeman will watch this thing, I want me talking home back. You understand? Me talking home back.
The Udoka Golden Point Hotel and Suites, sited along the Onisha-Owerri Road axis, appears to be what it is, hotel. But that's a facade. On the contrary, the building masks heinous criminal activities ranging from kidnapping and other violent crimes. Barely a week after Governor Chukwuma Soludo signed the Homeland Security Framework into law and the mantra of see something, say something issued, the Homeland Strike Force unearthed the evils of Udoka Golden Point Hotel and Suites, Oba. Deputy Governor Dr. Onyeka Chukwuibezim leads a demolition squad to pull down the hospitality home that perpetrates such mind-boggling hostility. The horror story is visible at the topmost floor of the two-story building. It's an atrocious sight to behold. Chains of graves and a shrine in clear view, rooms in shambles, and expended bullets bring into light the reprehensible acts that have been committed. The demolition begins in accordance with the Homeland Security Law. The Deputy Governor, Dr. Ibezim, makes it clear that this is not a symbolic act. It's a serious response to this despicable crime.
There is still room for amnesty. But come out. We have all sorts of training going on for the youth, the 1 youth 2 skills which have upskilled, and a lot of things, employment going on for the youth and others. The state has now said no, zero tolerance to all sorts of criminalities. Our people must go on their businesses unharassed.
Taking the structure down completely, the team moves to another location, still in Oba, to seal a facility reported to be in the same line of business. The Deputy Governor gives the hotel owner 48 hours to explain why the structure will not be demolished, even as investigation is ongoing.
What we are doing now is, with the information we've so gathered about this hotel, we are selling this hotel, okay, and then we are giving you 48 hours to bring up your evidences, because the security agencies are also going on with their investigation. If it is not done well, if you don't show clear-cut evidence why you should continue in this kind of business, we'll bring it down, and the government will take ownership of it. So for now, this place is safe.
In the light of the discoveries, the state government urges members of the public to support the war against crime and criminality and report any activity that is unclear to them in their areas.
This is the end of our news update. Please click the icon on the top right corner of your screen to watch my next video. You will enjoy it. I will see you again in my next update. Enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye for now.